Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us today from wherever it is that you happen to be sitting and watching in from. Today's topic is the best marketing tactics to help you win customers from outside your local area. This is a very common question that we get on InsideLocal. It's a common question that almost every kind of SEO has been asked at some point in their career, probably not if not in their career, in the last week. So we're going to really kind of take a deep dive into this topic, and I'm joined by Greg Gifford, who's the VP of Search from DealerOn, and Phil Rozek, who is the owner of a consultancy called the Local Visibility System. And just in case you're not familiar with these two sort of stalwarts of local SEO, let me give them a quick introduction and a quick kind of bio. So Greg is the Vice President of Search at DealerOn. He has over 16 years online marketing experience and web design experience. A lot of that has been focused on local. He's a contributor to the Moz Local Ranking Factor study and has done for many, many years. He's also incredibly prolific on the sort of speaking circuit, and I think he's spoken around at 5 or 6 different conferences in the last month alone. Some of those kind of automotive focus, which is the kind of industry that he's sort of primarily focused on, but also sort of general and sort of broad SEO kind of conferences. He also does a bit of his own freelance web design and SEO sort of consultancy as well. He's actually got to come over to the UK next week to speak at Brighton SEO and also run as a local SEO training course there. So a huge wealth of knowledge Greg has and is bringing to the webinar today. So Greg, thank you very much for joining us. Anything you'd like to say to the people listening in?
Yeah, if you're going to be in Brighton next week, you should come to my class and you can even hear more in-depth, super crazy inside info on local SEO. But just in general, happy to be here, and hopefully we can help some of you that are having some problems that you need help with.
Okay, great. Thank you, Greg. Yes, for those of you who are in the UK and are attending Brighton SEO, Greg's course is on the Thursday. The conference itself is on the Friday. And we also have Phil. As Phil said earlier, Phil lives in Massachusetts. He's the owner of Local Visibility System. He's been working in local search for longer than me. I mean, when I first got into local, Phil was one of the first guys I kind of connected with, and he's been an ever-present in all things important sort of since that day. So well over a decade of experience working in local search. He's worked with hundreds of business owners in a vast range of industries, providing kind of consultancy and kind of hands-on practical implementation of sort of local search sort of practices. He's also a contributor to the Moz Ranking Factor study. Has been sort of 6 years, and I believe I'm right. Well, I've got my notes here, Phil, that the possum update, the algorithm update, you may have given it the name possum.
Yeah, you can blame me partly for the name possum. I will direct some of the blame to Joy Hawkins, who I think who did much more more of kind of the research and fact finding on that. But the name was just rattled off the cuff, and it stuck. So don't hold that against me.
Well, I think that gives us a testament to your kind of prominence within the local search industry. So guys, thank you very much for joining us today. So these are I'll be obviously having the kind of conversation with kind of Greg and Phil. Behind the scenes, we've also got a couple of people helping us out. Get my screen to change screens. Oh, gone one step too far. If anyone who has any kind of questions, please use the kind of Q&A box that some of you located already, and we'll do our best to kind of answer any questions in a kind of rapid fire way there. We've actually got Colin Nielsen, who works with Joy Hawkins at Sterling Sky. I believe Colin is either Director of Local Search or Head of Local Search at sort of Sterling Sky, and regularly helps us out on InsideLocal, so much so that I had to buy him a case of wine to entice him back for yet another sort of webinar. So any questions you've got, please put there. We will be looking to kind of elevate some of the kind of questions that you put there so that I can present those to kind of Phil and Greg and they can answer them on air. But also you'll have Colin answer them, and also you'll have my BrightLocal team answering those kind of questions as well. And there's likely to be a kind of conversation on Twitter. So if you don't want to ask specific questions in the Q&A box, then jump onto Twitter, use the hashtag #expandreach, and hopefully we can get a lively debate and discussion going on there. And again, my team will also be kind of picking up some of the kind of questions and interactions from Twitter as well. So that's how you can kind of take part in the kind of webinar today. So as I said, any kind of really interesting or specific or kind of prominent questions that come up will also be asked. I'll also be putting those to Phil and Greg as we kind of go along. Just so everyone knows, it is being recorded, and the recap and the video will be available on BrightLocal on Friday. So tomorrow we'll do the editing and we'll do the kind of roundup, and that will be published on Friday. So you have to jump off early, or you want to just sort of sit back and enjoy the conversation and not take too many notes, don't worry, you'll be able to kind of get all the kind of juicy details on Friday on the BrightLocal blog. And a quick plug for the next Inside Local webinar. On the 16th of May, I'm joined by Martha Van Berkel and Guy Chakalakis. And we're talking about how to optimize your website to maximize traffic and convert new customers. So very on-site focused, a lot of stuff in kind of schema and some very advanced tactics for improving not just sort of visibility, but also performance of your websites and conversion of your website. So please join me for that, 1 p.m. ET on May the 16th. Okay, so guys, let's jump into, I guess, the kind of sort of meat of the conversation, which is really kind of around sort of local search. And I think the kind of question is, how do businesses who are positioned in one location, one city, one neighborhood, manage to attract customers from outside their area? And I think it's quite well known that there is a bit of a kind of problem within local search, or a bit of a blocker based around location that prohibits or makes it very difficult for businesses in one area to appear in the kind of maps and the local pack in another area. Phil, do you want to maybe kind of give us a quick sort of summary, sort of précis of what you understand about the limitations that businesses have in expanding their reach beyond the area that they're physically located in?
Yeah, I'd love to. And first and foremost, thanks for having me on again to speak today. I think this is where it's helpful to divide local search into two and think of it in terms of the local map on the one hand and the localized organic results on the other. And you're right that in terms of expanding your reach on the local map, aka the 3-pack, aka the Google My Business results, your options are pretty limited. I mean, if you do everything right, you can kind of expand your footprint on the map somewhat. And certainly, if you add more Google My Business pages, you can expand your footprint a little more. But there is still that location factor, so you can only do so much with that. On the other hand, though, there's a lot you can do on the kind of the localized organic side of things to expand your footprint. So for me, probably the best summary of my approach, just strictly in terms of local SEO, is try to expand your net, I guess, on the Google map a little bit, and try to expand your net in the localized organic results a lot. Rather than try to expand, cover the map with like spammy Google My Business pages or anything like that. So I think if you emphasize your organic visibility, you'll live to fight another day.
Okay, great. Thanks, Phil. Greg, why can't businesses, or why do businesses struggle to rank outside their local area? What's the sort of fundamental core of that limitation?
Well, especially with Possum, a year and a half ago, Google really turned up that proximity factor, and you've got the whole proximity issue is massive, and there's also the fact that it's a pretty big signal that there's a physical address in that city, especially for showing up in the map pack searches. So if you're out in the suburbs and you're wanting to show up in main searches for the metro, it's really difficult because you don't have that physical address in that city. And unfortunately, it's something that used to be pretty easy to do if you knew your stuff. Like, Phil, you've been in the game long enough. We used to be able to do this all the time. And I had a guy that was 45 miles outside of Dallas, ranking #1 in the map pack for anything related to automotive 5 or 6 years ago. And you just can't do that anymore. And it's the same situation we always have, where those of us that are in local search all the time really understand all the game-changing rules and everything that happens, but the general public doesn't really understand how drastically things change. And they're looking at the fact that, even 2 years ago, they had better visibility, and now they don't, and it's really frustrating. So I think, A, it's just the fact that the rules have changed, and B, there's kind of a lack of knowledge out there about that rule change, and people just assume, I used to be able to do it, I should be able to do it now.
For those of you who want a bit more kind of context to it, Greg, why has Google made this change? What's their intent and their objective with it?
Well, it's like I always tell car dealers this, and any business really when I'm speaking at conferences. People get really frustrated, and even search marketers that are a little bit newer to the game get really frustrated about Google making these updates, and they're like, Google's out to screw us. But Google has a really vested interest in making sure that these search results are as amazing as possible, because Google makes all of its money off of AdWords. So it's going to make sure that the things that show up in the organic search results are the best results they can be, so that people will continue to use Google and continue to click on AdWords and make Google trillions of dollars a day. So when it's making these changes, something else people don't really consider that often outside of our little, uber nerd niche is that Google's getting trillions of search queries that it owns all the data on and sees exactly what you do. So it knows when people search for certain types of businesses, these are the types of results they want. So I always use the example of pizza delivery. When you type pizza delivery with no geo modifier, you get results right next to you because Google knows you need a pizza delivered from nearby. So when it's looking at these proximity factors and address factors, it's looking to say, okay, look, for all of the searches that occur around these keyword phrases and these general ideas, even though business owners want to show up outside of that, the general public, they really want something really right next to them and right nearby. And I think the explosion of mobile search, I think, has contributed to that because people are searching on their phone and they're now just inherently expecting that whatever they're searching for on their phone is going to be a nearby result. So I think the changes with the proximity factor and the address factor are just backing up user behavior and what most people actually want. Unfortunately, it's not really what business owners want.
Phil, come back to you. Does this affect all businesses to the same degree in the same way? Let's say you've got a physical location retail business versus a service-based business like a plumber who comes to you. Are they all impacted in the same way, or are there sort of subtle differences or bigger radiuses for service businesses?
This, for me at least, this is where it gets interesting and a little infuriating because the Google's bias toward closeness, as Greg said, matters differently to different businesses, right? So if you're bricks and mortar and you rely on customers coming to you, then you don't necessarily, it's probably not as important to you to reach reach people within a 50-mile radius around your place of business. If you are an HVAC company or a roofer or, as you said, a plumber, it becomes a little bit more important. And then, of course, it also matters where you are an HVAC company or a plumber or a roofer. If you're in the middle of nowhere, you can cast a much wider net because there are fewer local competitors to you. And so, as the density of competitors goes up, as the market is more saturated, the smaller geographical footprint you can realistically hope to have, even if you do everything right, in terms of your local SEO. If you're in a big city market, obviously a good classic example is New York. Even if you're an HVAC company in New York City, that is, you'll be, even if you do everything right, you'll be lucky to be visible in like one of the boroughs, not in all 5 boroughs, not in the whole tri-state area, certainly not within a 50-mile radius around your place of business in New York City. So you have, not only does the industry matter, but also how many local competitors you have matters, and that all of that stuff affects your ability to kind of cast as wide a net as you want to.
Okay, so I think that really kind of hopefully sort of sums up for everyone what the issue is. You guys work with clients. How often do you come up across a client who just won't accept that as an answer, or who gets terribly frustrated with this? And how do you handle that?
Every day. It comes up. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't understand how things have changed and how it's different. And even the ones that aren't looking at how things were 5 years ago, they're just looking at now and they're saying, I should show up. I'm a better option. And I, sure, I'm in the suburbs and I'm 25 minutes outside of downtown, but I should show up in searches in this town because I service this whole town. People will drive 20 minutes to me, and it's really hard. We have to do, I feel like as local SEOs, SEO professionals that really specialize in local, I feel like within, I don't know, Phil, back me up on this, the last couple of years, I feel like we've had to have much more focus on educating clients than we used to because things have become so much more difficult. We have to really make sure that people have the right expectations. And so I know that for us, And just for me speaking at conferences in general, there's always a factor of local is really complicated, and we need to make sure that people understand how it works, because otherwise you're going to be working with clients that have vastly misaligned expectations with what can actually happen in reality. And that has nothing to do with them being stupid or uneducated, or nothing to do with you not having the ability as an SEO agency to deliver. It just has to do with, we think about Google all the time, and we tend to forget that the general public doesn't really understand how it works or even think about how it works. So I think our job, one of the things I'm talking about next week in my training class at the day before Brighton thing is there's a whole section on agency side of not here's how to do local SEO, but here's how to sell local SEO. And here's how to explain how this works to people that don't understand computers, because you have to do it at a high level, but you have to have enough detail that they understand it without their eyes glazing over. So I feel like there's been a big shift, at least for us, of it's not just be really kick-ass at what you deliver, but be really good at explaining why it works the way it works so that people have the right expectations.
Yeah, I would back you up 100% on that. I second your motion pretty much on all of that. That's been my experience too. I mean, generally, I'm pretty with my clients, I'm kind of known for sort of tough love and just saying, look, here's how Google operates. Here's how your competitors operate. What do you want to do? And I mean, a lot of times I find that the standard operating procedure, especially with clients like with whom I haven't worked for months or years yet, is don't necessarily do anything better than your competitors do. Just do more of it. So it's either on the Google My Business side, it's, oh, my competitor's spamming, he's just belching out 10 fake Google My Business pages, using employees' addresses. Well, I'm going to do 20. I'm going to make 20 Google My Business pages. Or with city pages on the organic side, if you don't have a bunch of bogus Google My Business pages, you say, well, I can just make like a 100 pages. I offer 10 services. I operate in 10 cities. I'm going to make 100 pages, each geared toward that city and that service. So, it just gets out of hand, and there's this kind of bloated approach of, kind of spray and pray marketing. Not to use too many metaphors here, but I prefer the kind of dig the well before you're thirsty approach, which is, it's going to take you months. It's going to take months, if not years, to figure out exactly what works for you and your business in the local results. So, if you're trying to expand your service area and if you're trying to go back to your example, Miles, if you're trying to get visible within a 50-mile radius around your place of business, it's going to take some time. It's not like, well, let's see what we can do in 2 to 3 months.
Exactly.
So yeah, I to Greg's point, I found that on the one hand, in recent years especially, it's never gotten easier to kind of take a bigger bite out of your service area. But on the other hand, it's gotten so much obviously harder to get visible in that service area that I think in a strange way, it's easier for clients to buy into the fact that, oh, this is going to take some work and it's going to take some time, probably more time and more work than we would like.
Well, and something else that we always say to customers that come in and immediately jump on the train of, I want to show up in all these other cities, is we always say you have to own your own backyard. You've got to really do well in your own city before you try to expand and go elsewhere. Because we get, I work pretty much exclusively with car dealers, and we get dealers all the time that are like, hey man, I'm going to speak at this conference. I want to do all this tactics and things you talked about and target all these other cities. And then we go look, and they have zero visibility in their own city. And you can't expect to do well if you're trying to expand that net if you're not dominating your own specific local area first. You got to get those parts right and have the right foundation before you try to expand and build more on your house. So that's an important thing to realize too, is that, like Phil said, it's not quick and easy, but it is possible to expand that reach, but you got to have that foundation in place first, and you can't just skip the local part and jump to the expansion part.
Yeah, because at least if you not dominate, I don't like that word, but if if you're pretty unavoidable in kind of your core service area, closer to home, that takes a little bit of pressure off. And you may not have as many customers as you'd like, but you'll keep the lights on. You'll be able to pay your hosting bill so they don't pull the plug on your site, and you'll live to fight another day, and you'll live to be able to try to expand that service area. And at least you won't be desperate then. It's not like, oh my God, I'm not visible anywhere. I got to get visible across the whole service area or else I'm going to go out of business. So if you have, the order of things matters. You can't cast a wide net and then narrow it down. You have to start with a narrow net and try to add nets onto that again, closer to home. So yeah, if you do it in that order, it'll go well. If you do it sort of the same thing, just backwards, not so well.
Yep.
So do you find then a lot of businesses that you come to you and say, I want more customers from a wider area, that a lot of them are already doing very well in their own area, or they're being overly ambitious too soon and are just kind of looking enviously over at their competitors who are ranking in the sort of big city?
And for us, it's kind of half and half. We do have a lot of people that come in that have basically no visibility in their own local area, and they're already thinking, I want to show up way over here when they're not showing up there. But I do also have a ton of people that come in and say, a lot of times too, it's people that are switching their strategies, either from their own in-house SEO or from a different agency, and saying, look, we're doing pretty well in our own city. We have good visibility. We're happy. We feel like we show up about as well as we can. But where do we go from here? How can we expand that? How can we do better if we're already pretty, what was the word you just used, Phil? It was better than dominate.
My memory is feeble, so I wish
whatever word he just used, when you rewatch this video on Friday and it goes up, rewind like 5 minutes and see whatever word he used. That's the word I want to use right now. And then tweet it at me and be like, Greg, you're an idiot. You wanted this word. But yeah, you got to have that good visibility. But once you have that, there is the opportunity to expand. And I think a lot of people understand that. And that's when they start seeking out people like me or Phil or Joy or Guy or people that really specialize in local and have the expertise and experience to be able to go and do that long-term play of, okay, let's put some work in here and know that, months down the road, we're going to be able to have those additional nets and bring in more traffic.
Okay, guys,
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, my experience is similar to Greg's in that, people pretty much always want to cast a wider net, but every situation is different because some business owners say, well, I don't want to get visible in the whole service area, but there are these like few towns where there's a lot of cash and maybe bigger jobs to be had, and so some business owners kind of want to cherry pick and get visible in certain parts of the service area. So that's usually where I start the conversation. It's not when somebody says, Phil, I want to cast a wide net. I would say, I try to define what the net is, what's under the net a little bit more. Do you care about all the cities and towns equally, or can you apply the 80-20 rule and say, well, 5 or 10 of them really matter and the rest are kind of icing on the cake?
Question about picking, if people do want to expand their sort of reach. Obviously, Google Insights, GMB Insights rather, has now got a new sort of heat map for where people are getting driving directions for your business. It's a new sort of piece. Do you think that's a useful sort of tool for helping to understand where existing customers are coming from, and therefore where actually good areas to be targeting if there's obviously an existing keen customer base?
I definitely think so. I mean, for us with, again, working exclusively with car dealerships, you really have two reasons people are coming to your site or to visit you at the brick and mortar location. They're going to buy a car or they're going to come get service. So if someone is not right nearby, they're probably going to need to look up directions. And so if you have that heat map and you can see, hey, this is where people are coming from, and this is different than, hey, this is where my AdWords data or Google Analytics data says their location is. This is actual, people are clicking from this spot to get directions from where they are to where I am. People aren't going to do that unless they're planning on coming to see you. So that's a pretty good metric to get a good feel for, this is really the areas that people are trying to figure out how to find me from.
Yeah, I would agree with Greg on that. I generally take a pretty grim view of the GMB insights because they seem they just kind of suck. They're usually inaccurate, or there's no data in there, and there's not always much to glean from them. Especially for businesses that aren't super visible yet, that maybe don't have too many signs of life in the GMB dashboard yet. So my default, when I want to look at, okay, where within my client service area is the most interest, I tend to go to AdWords, and maybe we can talk about AdWords later. But this is where running kind of a quick and dirty AdWords campaign, not to convert leads necessarily, but basically to buy the good data, because that's the only good data Google will ever give you. Essentially you have to pay for it. That's where that really comes into play for me, because you can go into kind of the dimensions tab in AdWords and look at not only the specific zip codes or locations of searchers, people who clicked on you, but even people who just saw your ad but maybe didn't click. So you do see the impressions. You can see that, and you can also see the distance. That you can see like how the distance of the searcher affects click-through rate. You can determine, for instance, whether after about 10 miles, when the searcher is more than 10 miles away from you, nobody clicks on your ad. Whereas if they're 5 miles away, you have a 26% click-through rate. So for me, at least, all the good data is in AdWords, but I do think it's worth kind of triangulating, at least with maybe what you see in Google Analytics and maybe what you see in the GMB Insights.
Okay, that's really good insight, Phil. I hadn't sort of thought of it from that point of view before. So sticking with the kind of local, we've established that actually it's very hard, if you're in one location to rank in another location. How are some people doing at the moment? What are the tactics that people are employing, good or bad, that you see as still working? I mean, are people still creating spammy extra GMB listings with sort of fake virtual addresses? And given that Google has tightened the radius now, has that predicated more spam and fake listings? Because actually, they've got to be doing that to try and get visibility.
I feel like when I talk at conferences, the one question that I am 100% guaranteed to get at every, not necessarily automotive, but at every search marketing conference that I ever speak at, I know I will always get at least one question about, hey, my competitors are doing fake GMB listings by using the addresses of their employees. I don't think that's ever going to go away. And unfortunately, if you can report it, you can get it shut down really quickly. But a lot of business owners don't know enough to know that, hey, I can just go get this reported and taken down. And they just get frustrated because it's like spamtastic and everybody does it. And I think, like you said, I kind of feel like it's happening a little bit more because people are more desperate to try to show up in those areas where they really don't have a brick and mortar location.
Yeah, my take is similar to Greg's in that I don't think it'll ever go away. And it is kind of with the spammy GMB listing, it's kind of a game of whack-a-mole, and the spammers are never really kind of sort of sent back to the doghouse with their tail between their legs. I mean, Google doesn't really do enough about it, and so the problem never really gets better. I would say that kind of the tactics I consider to be, to use your word, Miles, bad. I wouldn't say that those really work. They work, I think, just well enough that some spammers keep doing it, but the fact that they have to keep cranking out like crappy city pages and bogus GMB listings means that there's some desperation there. So it's not like, oh well, we made 5 city pages, kind of cookie cutter generic city pages, spammy, and then we did 2 GMB listings and we had all the customers we needed from just kind of a low level spamming like that. It's like it's kind of an all or nothing phenomenon. So I think it doesn't work as well as it might look. And a lot of times I have to tell clients, like, okay, you have a competitor who's spamming the map and maybe spamming the organic results. He might rank okay for now, but how do you know he gets any customers out of the bogus GMB listings or the like cookie cutter city pages? And when kind of the shoe is on the other foot, and I work with clients who say, Phil, help me out. I've been making these GMB listings. Yeah. I know I shouldn't have done it, but I needed the phone to ring. And I have all these city pages. Yeah, I know I'm not supposed to have them, but I thought that they would rank. when I look at the analytics and the kind of their KPIs on those, like the GMB pages that they shouldn't have, or the city pages that they just kind of belched out, without much thought, they never seem to say, I got a ton of customers from this GMB page or the city page. It's usually like, I'm not sure if they're even working for me. So that's my general take, that the spammy tactics work just enough to give people faith in them, but they don't really work in my experience.
Well, it's more the difference of those are what I would call spammy tactics and not black hat tactics. Because for me, I kind of look at more like black hat tactics are things that we all know are against what Google says you should do and could potentially get you penalized. But hey, this stuff really works. And if you really want to push the envelope, you could do this. And sure, there could be a penalty or some sort of algorithmic update that wipes you out soon, but this is like a loophole in the algorithm. Whereas the spammy stuff is like you're always on the hamster wheel, and it's not really a tactic that works because, like you said, you have to continue to just churn, and that train's always running, and it's not something you can do and it works. It's you're always churning out fake listing after fake listing after fake listing, and guess what? 10 of them get knocked out, so you put 10 more up. I wouldn't really consider that a black hat tactic because, like you said, it doesn't really work. It's just something that people continue to do because it's the vanity metric of, oh, I've got 15 listings, and so I'm probably going to get more visibility and more traffic.
That's interesting. So you think people get kind of sucked into that sort of visibility piece without thinking, actually, does this convert down the line? Are these 100%. People actually genuinely getting business from it? Do you think, as a sort of a local modern SEO, is spam fighting a core sort of skill that you need to have? Is that something you guys spend much time doing for your customers in terms of trying to knock out these sort of fake competitors?
No, I just call Joy.
You just contact Joy?
Yeah, I just call Joy. I don't even worry about it. Now it's like, hey, so here's what's going on, and we got this thing, and she's like, oh, send me the details, we'll take care of it. She's like the destroyer, like the hashtag says. I definitely think it's a skill set. I mean, ask anybody out there, like, she's the one that everyone goes to for spam destruction because she's built not like that's all she does, but she's really built herself up to be like the premier expert of identifying and fighting that BS spam that's out there. And I kind of know about it, but my skill set there is massively lacking compared to the knowledge level that she's got.
Yeah, a similar situation with me. I do a little bit of spam fighting on behalf of my clients, and sometimes, just as kind of what I would consider a good Samaritan. If I see some spam in my backyard, I'll do something about that. And so I've been able to, on behalf of my clients, I've been able to stack a few bodies in kind of the anti-spam effort, but it's never enough. And if we kind of take care of one competitor and sort of fix his wagon, there's always another one who's spamming. So this is where it gets pretty frustrating because Google just the powers that be at Google Maps just tie your hands so badly that there's only so much you can do. So I think that's where it really behooves you to, especially for the business owner who's trying to expand the service area, not fixate on Google Maps so much. That's one reason I say, put some of your effort into kind of expanding the Google Maps footprint a little bit, but put the bulk of your work into sort of expanding your visibility in the organic results, because that's a lot more insulated in my experience against spam. Obviously there is some, but the problem hasn't kind of metastasized in the organic results the same way it has on the local map.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, but we'll come and talk about organic in a second. A couple of questions have been sort of put up to me by the guys. One is around search area radius for SABs. Is there any kind of good rule of thumb or best practice for how big that radius should be for an SAB business?
Not at all. I mean, I tend to think, the way I explain it to clients is it's like if you're a kid and it's Christmas time and you're putting 50 gifts on your wish list for Christmas. You'll be lucky to get like 2 of them. The other 48 will have to wait till another year. And that's kind of how it is with the service area settings in Google My Business. you just because you have if you have put down 100-mile service area, you are not going to rank even in a piece of that. So it's really just for kind of I guess optics purposes, because that the service area settings do show up in the knowledge panel. So when somebody searches for your business by name, they'll see on the right hand side, oh, they serve an area, a service area this big. It looks like I'm in that circle. So this business looks like a good fit. But it has absolutely no bearing on the rankings. I don't think it hurts your rankings, at least in my experience, to have kind of a big, almost ridiculously big service area in Google My Business. But I have not noticed that it matters one pinch for your rankings.
Okay, so it's a good converter potentially. It won't necessarily influence your visibility, but if someone happens to find you and they're 20 miles away, if they see that you cover that area, then actually they're more likely to call you than not.
Exactly. I think that's you summed it up perfectly.
Yeah. Okay, great. So obviously, the avenues for deepening or getting more coverage in kind of local search is difficult. So let's talk about where you would spend your time and effort to kind of expand the reach of a local client. So let's talk about organic search and what strategies you guys are. We've talked about city pages. Phil, you've been a bit disparaging about those. So if a client comes to you and says, and you say, what, you're ranking well locally in your local area, you've got your GMB well optimized, you've done your sort of citations, you've kind of ticked all the kind of essential boxes there, and you've got reviews coming in. What's next on your kind of your tactics list for helping them expand their kind of geo visibility?
I would say 50% of it is work on the stuff you would probably that you would work on anyway for any local SEO campaign, regardless of, is it a bricks and mortar business, is it a service area business, how big is the radius? So half of it is just work on stuff, work on kind of the daunting, grinding, high payoff stuff that matters, like rustling up links, rustling up reviews. If you do that, you'll be okay, and your service, in ways you create a little bit of serendipity if you do that, in my experience. So you will, in one way or another, cast a wider net in the local results. So that's 50% of it right there. I would say the other 50% is do some city pages, and we can discuss maybe a little bit more later. Well, but I mean exactly by kind of quality over quantity, but don't again belch out 50 city pages or 100 of them. Do 5 or 3 even, and get them really, really good. So don't talk about, again, it can't just be the cookie cutter content of, we serve, we are an HVAC company and we serve such and such, customers in such and such city, give us a call. You have to do a little bit more than that. So my approach generally is do, 3 to 5 pages on cities where you've got customers and you want more, as opposed to cities where you don't have any, you haven't had a single job, and you just kind of want to dip your toe into the water. So the more on those pages you can kind of talk about your portfolio and sort of cite the jobs you've done rather than the jobs you want, that's good. Google and people like those crunchy bits of detail. So anytime you can kind of show reviews or testimonials or photos or videos, or even just describe some jobs you've done, then you have at least the core of a city page that could A, rank well, and B, actually bring you customers out of the deal. So definitely start with, to go back to kind of the beginning of the conversation, start with a very narrow net, and then if that works, expand it a little bit. So do not start off with 50 city pages. Start off with 3 to 5. And my other main bit of advice would be, don't just limit yourself to city pages. There are other types of viable pages on your site that, with a little bit of work, probably have a better chance of ranking than your city pages. So I like the examples of, first and foremost, the homepage. To me, in my experience, a myth has been, well, you can only optimize the homepage for one city or one location. That's not true. Yeah, I guess it's true in the sense that you can't have a title tag that's 400 characters long, but there's a lot you can do on that page. So one bit of advice I have for a lot of my clients, and it's something I work on with them, is you need a big, bad homepage that describes your services in like excruciating detail and describes your service area, all the cities in it, in excruciating detail. And that doesn't have to be like above the fold content. So you can do it kind of lower down on the page where only Google and a few sort of geeky readers will actually see that content. But you can't have kind of this little anorexic homepage that doesn't really describe your service area. And what I found is that the homepage is usually more likely to rank for like kind of farther away parts of your service area than a city page is. And my theory is just that the homepage tends to have all or most of the link juice, and it's usually just missing content that's relevant to the service area. So if you can add that relevant content about your service area and about jobs you've done, if you can have some reviews you can copy and paste reviews from clients in that part of the service area that you're trying to reach, that's all good stuff to put on your homepage. And it's been my experience that is usually a more viable page than city pages.
So for us, we do local content silos because everybody out there is going to create city pages. So most people that are forward thinking enough to understand how local works, they may not throw out the good quality stuff that guys like Phil and I do, but you're still going to have competitors that are putting up a bunch of crappy city pages. They're like, let me throw out 50 city pages to target these cities. And it's all that crappy content like Phil was talking about. But everybody's doing that. So you have to be better. And it's not about creating a page that says we serve customers in this area. We create the whole silo. So think of it like a micro site within your site. You've got your primary either service or product pages that you're rewriting unique content that's tied into that local area, talking about that local area throughout those pages. And then you've got that location page that's the contact page for that area or whatever, and you've got all that. Then you're writing blog content about that local area, and you have a really strong internal link structure within that silo. So you've got your main site, but then you got the silo over here for that other city that, you've got a couple of links into the silo, but once you're in the silo, you don't have that many links coming back out. And it's a really strong internal link structure using those location geo keywords and terms for that silo. And then you're also expanding your link building efforts and trying to get local links from businesses in those cities. But instead of pointing them to your main site, you're pointing them to that content silo. And then when you're getting reviews from customers, as you start to expand your reach and you get reviews from customers in those areas, you're putting those reviews in that silo as well. So now you're backing up that stuff. You can mark up those reviews with schema, and you start to build out this really robust kind of not false footprint, but you're creating a geographically relevant footprint without having a physical location in that city. And again, it's a long-term play, like Phil said. I mean, when we're doing this for our clients, we're telling them, look, plan on 10 to 12 months before you're going to see anything out of this, because you can't just throw up a city page and hope that it's going to show up. Like Phil said, you never have links. The links go to your homepage. So this is something that now you're almost saying, I'm adding a separate website without adding a separate website. You're doubling your efforts or tripling your efforts, or just shaving off a little bit of time out of that bucket of time that you have for the month and spending it on this little kind of siloed off micro area of the site. And that's been extremely effective for us, even after the updates over the last few years. It's still something that worked really well for us.
Yeah, I would back you up on the point about especially internal links. I mean, I know it sounds like Stone Age SEO advice, but the internal linking really matters for getting those, not only getting people on the site to see your city pages, because you want, I found that if you have a page nobody goes to, Google, it's probably not going to rank well in Google. So you want to get eyeballs onto the page, and so internal links matter in that sense. But also, you want to harness whatever link juice you have, usually on the homepage. I mean, because that's usually the URL with most or all of the good links. Because it's so hard to get links to city pages or state pages or portfolio pages or location pages or what have you, you got to economize what you've got. So yeah, the more you can kind of spread around the link juice and actually get people and get kind of a trail of breadcrumbs to those city pages or those location pages. That seems to make a big difference in my experience. And the other thing I would add is, as Greg says, it takes longer than anybody would like to succeed in expanding the service area. So 10 to 12 months is actually a pretty good ETA. I would say that if you, the business owner, are impatient, it's time to battle test. Put up a couple city pages for areas you want to reach, and then battle test them in AdWords. So, I mean, if you're comfortable with pointing paid traffic and potentially paying like $15 a click to send people to a page, you're probably going to take the time to do it right and to kind of say your piece, to showcase reviews, showcase the work you've done, and in kind of making a city page sort of ready for prime time, good enough potentially to convert AdWords traffic, you've probably done what it will take for the city page to rank well in the organic results. And the other upshot of that, of course, is it might actually be good enough to get you some good leads or customers if only somebody sees the damn thing, which is also where I think AdWords and local SEO potentially can play nicely together.
Greg, in your content silos then, what would be a typical sort of blueprint for a content silo?
Well, so again, for us, it's always going to be automotive examples that I use. So, on any auto dealer website, you're going to have your primary menu buttons are going to be new car, used car, finance, parts, and service. And so within a silo, we're going to have a new car page, a used car page, a service page, and probably a finance page so that we can target that phrase and that idea and that concept within that city. So we're going to have those 4 or 5 primary pages that are not just, hey, we're going to go run this through some wordsmith and have somebody rewrite it. It's actually completely rewritten because it's more about the local area and servicing that area and understanding what's going on there. And then as we push out blog posts, when we're doing blog posts for our dealers, half the blog posts that we do have jack squat to do with the business. It's stuff that's about the local area and news about the local area and what's going on with the local area. And so we just start to add in blog posts and information and useful tidbits about that targeted city for that silo. So then within that content silo, we've also got, a sidebar or a link to related blog posts around that area, which again strengthens that internal linking because you've got that geo-targeted keyword in those links to those blog posts that talk about that local area. And a lot of times with car dealers, it's a lot easier for us to do local link building than a lot of other businesses because car dealers are really philanthropic and they're really involved in the local community with charity events and things like that. So it's really easy to expand and say, hey, look, you're spending, several $100,000 a year on these specific charity events or sponsorships. Let's add a little bit for this city that you want to show up in. And once you start doing those, sponsorship events or charity events or, volunteer events in those cities, it's really easy to get links from those types of activities. And instead of pointing them back to the main site, now you're pointing them back. It's still the main site, but you're pointing them back to the pages within that silo to strengthen that geographic footprint.
And all the pages in the silo, they sort of follow a sort of parent-child page structure, I presume.
Yeah, it's really I hate using the term microsite because that's total spammy 1990s type SEO, but it's really that kind of a concept. It's almost like we call it a content silo because it's a siloed off area of the site. It's not something that is incredibly easy to get to, but it's not at the same time hidden and just there for Google. It's there for users. And it's not a doorway page where it's like, hey, we're throwing up a city page, but it's basically a doorway page. We want it to show up in that city and funnel traffic to the rest of the site. This is stuff that we fully expect if and when it starts showing up in searches for that other geographic location. People will land on these pages and be able to navigate within that silo and never have to really break out and go to those other pages. Because again, you want that reinforcement because let's say, trying to think of outside of Dallas, let's just say you're in the suburbs. And so you're in a town that's, 15 minutes outside of the main metro. So like in Texas terms, I'm out in Plano or Richardson, which is over here, and main city Dallas here, and you're 15, 20 miles away. if you create that city landing page for Dallas and someone in Dallas gets there and they start clicking through your content, and then the rest of the site is optimized and created around Plano area content, then now that person in Dallas, as they're reading through your service pages or their product pages, and you've written really good geographically centered content, then they're going to be seeing all this other city in there, and they're like, oh, that's not close to me. So now if they're clicking into your site off of stuff that's being surfaced to them in searches, and you've got enough content and enough pages there that they can see everything they need to see to decide they want to do business or call you, but they're staying within that silo, everything is optimized and written around that city instead of the actual city you're located in. So it's great for showing up in search. It's also great for that reinforcement of that geographic relevance, because once somebody gets in there, they're seeing the city that they're in instead of seeing pages that are talking all about some other nearby town.
Yeah,
So
I would. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I would also, once again, second what Greg said about silos. I found that I don't tend to think of it in terms of silos, but in terms of, do my city page, my clients' city pages have kind of an umbrella page that ties them all together? Either it's kind of a main locations page, or it is a service areas page, or communities we serve, something like that. And I found that those pages themselves can rank well, especially if you actually describe your service area on them and you go into those kind of crunchy bits of detail that Google and people seem to like. Those pages themselves are viable. So again, one of my whole approaches to kind of casting a wider net, especially in the organic results, is kind of increase the number of viable pages on your site that could rank for in different cities. So you're not putting all your eggs into the one city page or the other city page. So if the home page is viable for certain cities, if your service areas or location pages if you have kind of a main location page or main service areas page, if those are also viable for ranking in the top 5 or 10 cities you care about, in addition to having some well thought out city pages, then you have a little bit of good redundancy. I like to think of it in terms of kind of belt and suspenders. So I think if you can not just bank on one city page ranking for that city, but potentially try to get a really good kind of main service areas page or main locations page, that can be very valuable. And by the way, those pages are really good to optimize for near you or near me search terms, because it's kind of a just sort of semantically just a better fit on those pages. So there's a lot of upside of what Greg would call the silo approach, or what I would call kind of having umbrella pages that kind of connect all the city pages together.
So is that almost a kind of regional sort of landing page then? And does this differ for I guess more rural areas to say sort of more built up areas, and how might you approach that? I mean, Greg, presumably you've got sort of auto dealerships in less built up areas of the kind of US. Does your strategy differ for them?
Yeah, it's totally different, and it's kind of what Phil mentioned earlier when he was talking about the density of competition. If I'm working with a Ford dealership that's the only Ford dealership in a 250-mile radius, then clearly he's going to show up really well for Ford. And if he's in a really small town in like Iowa or Wyoming, and there's 2 or 3 car dealerships total in his town, and in a 100-mile radius there's only 7 or 8 dealerships, everybody's going to be on page 1 no matter what. But that's where you can come in and really start to dominate and do a couple of these silo pages without a whole lot of effort, and maybe even not even do the whole silo and just do a city page, and you start showing up even in the map pack in cities that are 50, 60, 75 miles away, because there's literally only 1 or 2 other competitors in that city. So if there's 3 slots in the map pack, you get one of them. That's a lot easier than someone that's like in a market like Dallas or Houston or LA or Chicago, where between counting all the new car dealers and the used car dealers and the buy here, pay here guys, you got 300 or 400 people fighting for, page 1 visibility on phrases like used cars. So, in a situation like that, you got to put a heck of a lot more work into that silo, because you've got to create relevancy signals that are better than people that actually do have physical locations there. And there might be 100 people in that city that have a physical location that you don't, and you're trying to out optimize those guys, it's going to take a lot more time and effort and expertise.
How much of your effort do you put into link building versus kind of content creation? Either of you, in terms of doing that, if you're thinking like, okay, I want to go and do target 3 different cities. I know I can build the sort of pages and the kind of content. I'm going to keep adding to it. That alone doesn't do enough. So then it's the kind of link building side. How do you kind of plan your time and budget with your clients on those two sides?
So for us, I don't want to use the word template, but we have, call it a framework of buckets of time. So X amount of time spent on content, X amount of time spent on link building, so much time spent on reputation, so much time spent on social, so much time spent on citation. And that's a guideline. So it's going to be fluid and it's going to change based on the needs of that dealership and the location of that dealership. So like a guy in Wyoming, we probably don't have to spend as much time on citations because that dealership's been in the same spot for 50 years and there's nothing bad to go clean up and nothing really new to go get. And maybe his content's great. Or you've got a guy that's in a big city and they've moved their dealership 5 times in the last 10 years, and you've got a massive citation mess and they're just not showing up at all because there's so much confusion on a baseline signal like that. So it's really going to be kind of fluid. And typically for us, we're a little bit more heavy on the content side at the beginning of the process because we're trying to shore up all of the shortcomings of the site. You know, dealerships want to show up for all these service terms, but they have a single service page that has an iframed in service scheduling form and no content whatsoever. So you got to create all this service content. But, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 months down the road, once you've really shored up the content and you've got it all where you need it to be, or if you're working on those silos and you've got all that content there, you kind of shift and you're spending a little bit more time on the link building than you are on the content creation.
Yeah. For me, it is. It's a total case-by-case question. Some clients are doing okay on the links, but the content on their site and the structure of their site is just a hot mess. A lot of times it's the other way around, or a lot of times both of those things are issues, and it's a question of, sort of as SEOs, we're kind of like firemen, like trying to rescue like 5 dogs from a burning building at once. It's like, well, which dog do you take out first? Which dog do you take out second? Which is the poor dog you take out last? So sometimes it's a matter of just pick something and start working on it and then move on to the other as quickly as you can. In less competitive markets, I like to start out with some work on city pages and kind of, as Greg would say, the silos, and to get those up there first, because the bar is so low in terms of competition that those pages conceivably could rank without much work to earn links. In more competitive markets, I would tend to take the tack of, let's try to rustle up a few good links first, work on some pages, kind of the quote local content, go back to the links, go back to the pages. So it's kind of a dance back and forth, and it really just depends on the business. But you'll reach a point, of course, when you kind of have all the city pages you're going to have, and it's sort of, you have content on basically all of your service area, but none of it really ranks well. So I would say in that case, that's where links and reviews really are the ongoing task for local SEO. I mean, the work on the site and the work on the listings it kind of goes into the hamper of one-time work, and the links and reviews are more ongoing. So you never want to stop or working on links, and you want to start as early as possible, so that any pages you create actually do have somewhat better chances of ranking well. But the point is, it's a back and forth process, and I don't think there's one place you should always start. It really just depends on the situation.
Phil, you mentioned at the start pick 3 to 5 cities, your hottest prospects. Do you say pick those because as there's just so much work that gets done that if you try and give it too many, you'll never actually achieve success in any of them? Or is it a case that actually if you manage to get fantastic success with 3 or 5 and you've got a formula, you can take that out to more cities and to keep expanding it? Or do you find that suddenly you get into kind of Google penalty area issues or other complications that will hamper the performance of those initial 3 to 5?
Yeah, it's a little of both of those things. And I would also say, I say 3 to 5 pages because it's kind of a proof of concept. If you've put a lot of time and blood and sweat and tears into those 3 to 5 pages and they don't rank well, then you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, what else is going on the site? Are there technical issues? Do I not have any links? Why am I not ranking and why am I not getting calls from those as a result of those 3 to 5 really good pages? If they don't work out well, you have to go back to the drawing board. If they do work out well, then it's like, okay, I think I can do 3 to 5 more good ones. Yes, they took me longer than I would like. They took more effort than I would like. It took longer than I would like to have them rank, but they did rank, and they do seem to pull their weight, and they do seem worth the trouble of creating them. So I would say if the proof of concept, the 3 to 5 pages tells you that there's some promise, then you can scale up and do more. I've never had for my clients. I mean, partly it's because I take a kind of a really squeaky clean, like kind of unique content approach. I've never had a penalty for clients, where we have double-digit numbers of city pages because we take the time to do each of them right. And of course, it takes a long time to get 20, 30, 40 different pages that actually target these different cities and don't just pay them lip service, and that actually might convert well. So it takes a long time to get kind of a corpus of city pages or other pages like that. But assuming you put in the time, and again, they're not just these like boilerplate cookie cutter pages where everything is the same from page to page, except you just swap out the name of the city. If you put a little bit of time into them, you will never run into the doorway penalty or anything like that. So that's why I say start small, and if it works well, then and only then expand.
Yeah, completely agree.
Okay, great, guys. Running over a little bit, but I want to move on to sort of another sort of section. So I guess what we've talked about now is obviously local search, very, very hard to get kind of ranking in local maps outside the local area. Organic definitely has localized organic has an opportunity, but it's a kind of long-term play to kind of do it correctly. Someone's not going to be able to turn on the switch tomorrow and start driving traffic, getting that phone calling, allowing them to keep the lights on in their business. So let's look at, I guess sort of shorter term solutions for businesses that need to get business in now, have the capacity to serve a bigger audience. Pay to play essentially is where the opportunity is, as I'm right. Now, Greg, I know you've done, you've both actually have got lots of experience in kind of AdWords, but maybe coming to kind of you, Greg, the client says to you, I just need more business. I've got 3 sales guys. I need to kind of keep them busy. I need more people coming to the kind of site now and kind of converting and calling me. What's your kind of your go-to tactic?
Well, I mean, definitely AdWords, because you can really specifically target locations. We've been a huge fan of Facebook ads. If you really apples to apples comparison, may not convert at as high a percentage as AdWords, but they're so much cheaper. You can get a lot more conversions for your money, and especially with the local awareness ads, where you can exactly target a physical location and go as narrow as a 1 mile radius so that those ads are going to show up on mobile devices. There's so many opportunities for really specific down to neighborhood level local targeting that you can run really cheap ads for and really pull in business. And, we've had a lot of car dealers that have been really successful at running these local awareness ads, and they target their competitors' locations in other cities that are nearby, because that what are people doing while they're sitting there waiting for their oil change? They're playing around on Facebook on their phone. So you can run ads and do serious conquest business off of competitors by running Facebook ads that are going to show up on mobile at those locations. And, the car dealers are, like I said, really involved in the community. So, if you're sponsoring a 5K, drop the map pin on the 5K and run your ad for your business at that location. Or you're doing an event in another city, or, a 5K is happening in another city that you're not even sponsoring, drop map pins there. We've got a car dealer that quit running ads in all of the area football programs for all the high school football games and instead dropped map pins on each of the high school football stadiums and ran an ad for 4 hours every Friday night. And it was really cheap, and they got tons of business out of it. We were talking to a dealership in Seattle, that's Ferrari in Seattle, and said, hey, you guys should advertise at Seahawks games. And they were like, it's ridiculously expensive. And we said, not really, because if you know the game is at noon on Sunday, you can drop a map pin on the stadium and run it from noon to 4, because what's everybody doing between quarters and during halftime? And what are the bored wives doing, or the bored kids that aren't into football, or your team's losing and you don't care? You're going to go look at Facebook. And so you can get thousands and thousands and thousands of eyeballs on your ads and lots of clicks and conversions for really cheap with these local awareness ads. So I think that's a really quick way to kind of give a bit of a boost. And yeah, it's pay to play, but pay to play is going to work all day long as you're getting conversions and getting business out of it.
On the AdWords side, obviously, local packs, there are more and more ads appearing in local packs. How does the kind of the geolocation filter for ads compare to standard, organic GMB listings? If I'm a business and I wouldn't naturally appear in the map because I'm not in the right location, if I pay to play in the map, does that geolocation go wider for me, or is it still subject to the same level of geofiltering?
I've noticed that it seems to be a wash. I mean, I wouldn't say I've studied it closely enough that I could tell, you expand your GMB footprint 1 mile versus 2 miles if you pay to play. That may be the case. I don't know, but from what I've seen, I almost never see like sort of pay to play, the home service ads results where I never see a business in the kind of the pay to play, the sort of the paid 3-pack where the business just wouldn't rank otherwise. So it's always pretty close to home. Those results are very location sensitive in that respect. But who knows? I mean, Google has never met an ad that it doesn't like. So I wouldn't be surprised if by doing AdWords, essentially doing AdWords with location extensions enabled. If you expand your GMB footprint a little bit, I guess the jury's out on that, but stranger things have happened.
We need to do some sort of a study on this, because I've seen lots of situations where people can buy those local pack ads, and if you really look, they tend to be outliers. They're not really within that radius. And maybe it's not super far outside the radius, but I think it does get you a little bit of an expanded visibility radius there. But again, well, like we mentioned before, everybody wants something close by. And just because you buy into that and you're getting visibility, it's like Phil said, is it really the vanity metric of, hey, you're there and you're happy? Or, oh my God, my competitor's there, he's killing me. But is it really bringing in conversions? Is it really bringing in business? Like, if everybody's looking for something nearby and you're 10 miles further away than the furthest result of the 3, are people really going to drive out to you just because you got that ad that puts you in that top spot? Maybe, maybe not, but why spend the money if it's not working just to say that you're there?
Well, how does that work from a normal sort of PPC perspective? If you're buying, kind of keywords for a nearby town and city, yes, you may get to the top of the page, but are you seeing lower conversion and therefore a higher ROI on, the further you go away from your actual location?
Depends on the business and the area, really.
So if it's a business that people are prepared to travel, that's okay. But if it's a cafe, people aren't going to, there's 10 other cafes nearby. Even if you're more visible, people are going to reject it because actually they can get what they need close to home.
Yeah, I mean, unless you offer something that's so ridiculously unique that nobody else has and nobody else offers, yet you're hindered by that visibility and you want to buy into that because that gives you that extra visibility that once people see you, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this restaurant has ninjas that drop down from the ceiling and bring you your food. Nobody else has that. I never knew about it. Now I'm going to go. But if you're like, oh, what's he do? It's another restaurant. Who cares?
So I guess originality, scarcity, I guess, or if someone's got an incredible specialism, if there's a, chiropractor who's got a particular specialism that serves the issue you've got, you're going to want to travel further to kind of be seen by the right person, as opposed to someone who's just a more of a sort of general practitioner, say.
Yeah, but if someone's looking for that specific service and you're one of the few people that has it, you're going to get surfaced anyway.
But not in the map unless Google's able to define your your particular
Well, but I
service
mean, it
down
depends.
to
If
a
you're
niche.
looking for like underwater zero gravity chiropractor and you're in a massive market like Dallas where there's 500 chiropractors, if you're looking for Dallas chiropractor, okay, sure, you're not going to show up. But if you're looking for zero gravity underwater chiropractor in Dallas, now because it's more long tail and specific, even though there's a million chiropractors you're competing against, there's only 3 in town that do that specific service. If somebody's searching that way, you're still going to show up in the map hack because you're the only thing that's really relevant to that query.
Yeah, Google loves a specialist. I mean, if you can, one of my most, this is probably my most frustrating piece of local SEO advice, but maybe one of the best is if you can figure out, if you can kind of define your niche before you start sort of chasing local rankings. I mean, if you can become a specialist, everything is going to be easier, from AdWords to word of mouth referrals to getting visible on the local map, to getting visible on the local organic results, and everything in between. So, I mean, the more you can just kind of own, this is kind of the corollary of what Greg said about owning your backyard. If you can own a niche and own a niche, if you can own a niche, you can sort of own that niche in your backyard and even farther than your backyard. I mean, for instance, if you are like, it's usually for most businesses, like most plumbers, it's not realistic to expect to show up on the local map 100 miles away for plumbing queries. But if you're a taxidermist or you do something, you make X-ray imaging machines, for example, you could show up in the local map hundreds of miles away because you have a very well-defined niche. And there's a low density of competition. So yeah, suffice it to say, Google loves specialists. And I think that the search results over the years have gotten more granular, not only in terms of location. So Google shows more, kind of over time, Google shows more kind of close to home results, but the results are more specialized. So Google is not going to show kind of a general practice attorney, but it can show an attorney who specializes in a very specific type of case. So if you can, or before you get your hands too dirty on local SEO, if you can like really pare down your niche, it's not going to be nearly as tough sledding, at least in my experience.
Greg, good question for you. You talked about obviously the kind of content silos and creating specific sort of areas of the site, sort of super targeting on the content for a specific kind of location. If you're doing some PPC as well, do you tend to drive people into that silo, or do you tend to build specific landing pages that are more conversion optimized?
Typically, I mean, depending on what specific term you're targeting, sometimes those silo pages work pretty well. But typically, we're going to really create specific landing pages for our PPC campaigns because we know we're targeting a very specific phrase for a very specific neighborhood, and we want that landing page to be 100% ultra optimized to convert for people that have clicked through on that.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. And in your kind of targeting of to kind of get a wider geo, obviously you could target by location elements. Do you ever target competitors specifically? Like if you've got a dealer in a suburb and there's a big player in the main sort of metro area, do you ever do any kind of competitive targeting of them to kind of almost sort of kind of live off the kind of the oxygen that they kind of create through their own marketing?
It kind of depends for us because within automotive, you've got some pretty strict manufacturer rules about where you're allowed to advertise and who you're allowed to advertise against. So if it's a market with several of the same brand of dealership in town, they're typically not allowed to try to go after each other as far as targeting or targeting that specific location. But if those rules compliance things are not in place, then we have a lot of success doing it with like geofencing their location and targeting stuff so the people on their lot that are walking around will see those ads. Like I said, the Facebook stuff is really killer and it's a lot more cost effective. But the Google stuff, it's Google. I mean, it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And so the pay-per-click stuff is always going to convert really well. And that's something we always see. If you know what you're doing with AdWords and you're targeting correctly and you've got good landing page, like you've got it right all the way from soup to nuts, it's going to convert well and it's going to get you leads. It's going to work every time. I very rarely see a situation where you have somebody that knows what they're doing, both within local and within AdWords, that you have a client that says, well, that was just a complete waste of my money and I got nothing out of it. Like, especially in AdWords, you're so data centric, you're able to really dial stuff in and target it well and make sure it converts. So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, for us, it depends on those compliance rules and what you're allowed to go after with competitors.
Okay. We're going to talk about paid social. We've run way over time, but I'm sorry, I've been so absorbed in this conversation. It's been sort of fascinating. On the paid social side, Greg, actually you touched on a little bit. This is the last topic, and then we'll sort of wrap things up. So you said a good tactic is quite sort of time sensitive. Dropping map pins around a certain big events, because you're going to get a congregation of people, who are going to be on Facebook primarily when they're not sort of doing other stuff. Do you also use, and for non-time sensitive stuff, do you use things like, create lookalike lists from your own customer base, subscriber base, and target that to other
audiences? Well, I mean, even not even worrying about lookalike audiences, but pulling up a list of your past customers and loading that into Facebook and targeting them is incredibly successful, especially if you're pulling customers from a specific area. You segregate that list and say, okay, I'm going to pull in this list segment of just customers that live in this town that I'm targeting, and I'm going to run ads just at them. You can do that, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper. And then you're running ads at people that have already done business with you, so you're not just trying to throw ads out there and target the right keywords. You're targeting people that already know about you and already have experience dealing with that business, so it's more successful. And then, anything you can do with that geo-targeting, it always drives in. But I still think for us, the most successful stuff is it's more that it's not necessarily that super time sensitive, but it's just thinking about those areas where there's going to be a congregation of a lot of people that will have some dead time and they will be checking their phones. So local sports games, local events, concerts, art festivals, parades, anything like that you can think of, that you can target these things down to a specific 2-mile diameter. So you've got a map pin and a mile radius if you want to go that narrow, and you can target it down to a 1-hour window of time in that really specific area. If you've got the right kind of messaging and you're going to get visibility, it's going to work and you're going to get people to see you.
Okay, and on the kind of lookalike bit, essentially, if you got a list,
I got off track on that. Yeah,
that's right. So they've got your own customers in your own area that you're already kind of being successful with. You want to try and replicate or target similar people in another metro area or other suburbs.
Right. Which again for us is really cool because it's not like an e-commerce situation or like small business like lawyer plumber kind of thing. When you're buying a car, it's a big purchase, and they typically tend to have a lot of information on these people. So like persona-wise, you can segment your email list of your past customers and say, I want to target all the people that bought Jeeps specifically. And then you can take that list and then segment just the Jeep buyers in the one town and then go create a lookalike audience off of that. So you have you're in Dallas, but you're targeting Fort Worth, which is 30 minutes away. But you want to look at all the people that came from the Fort Worth area to buy a Jeep from your dealership within the last year or two. Then you can go load that list into Facebook and then have Facebook create a lookalike audience that now you can run Facebook ads at people that are similar to the people that actually bought from you, and it could be really powerful.
Yeah, no, that seems very powerful, actually. And you're presumably kind of creating custom creatives for things like that, so that the messaging is highly targeted to the audience.
It really matters, and that's where I think a lot of people that don't do AdWords or paid stuff very often, you always see a lot of people just pushing the landing page as the home page, or with car dealers, you'll see ads that run and it just lands on an inventory list. I think it's really important, especially when you get really granular on your targeting and you're creating this lookalike audience for this one specific geo area. You've got to have a landing page that matches that targeting, or people land. Like earlier when I was talking about the content silo stuff, if you're targeting Dallas, but you're not in Dallas, and then people get in, maybe they land on the Dallas page, but they want to click around and see a little bit more, and now all the pages are optimized to another city. That's a bad user experience. It's not going to convert well. So it's the same thing. If you're creating this highly targeted geo ad and somebody clicks on it and it's all this, the optimization and content is around a different area, that's not a good user experience and it's not going to convert. So you've got to have a really optimized landing experience.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we've run over. So let's do a sort of final. Well, firstly, thank you very much, guys. I've taken up more time than I thought we did. That was really interesting. Got totally absorbed in that kind of conversation. It's great. I know, it's kind of exploded on kind of Q&A, and I expect that Twitter's been pretty active as well. So thank you, guys. That was really, really great. We're going to write this up. There's lots of fascinating kind of takeaways that we're going to sort of share with our audience. So I really, really appreciate that. I've actually just noted down a few things. We're going to start dropping map pins on Brighton SEO next week, Greg. So we'll get some kind of custom creative for BrightLocal to sort of see how that see how
you
that
guys
works.
Last year that did the contest where you had 2 different terms and you had to choose which city term had the most search traffic?
Yeah, exactly. The keyword
Are you guys
volume.
doing that again? Because that was the coolest thing I've ever seen at any conference.
Is it really? No, we've actually, that game's now available online. So you go to BrightLocal, you look for keyword game, you can play that. You can play that game online wherever you are at any kind of time.
Yeah, but that's not as fun as doing it at the conference and like competing to see who can go the furthest. That was awesome.
It was fun. It was very good. We're not exhibiting this year, unfortunately. This particular, we're going to exhibit later on in this kind of September kind of conference. So guys, again, we'll be back. We'll be back. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate that. Thank you also to Colin Nielsen and also my team behind the scenes for kind of answering the Q&As. Thank you everyone for showing up. Please do show up again on May 16th to hear Martha and Guy discussing on-site optimization, talk about schema stuff, quite technical, very detailed, lots of stuff to take away, just like it has been today. So Phil and Greg, thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate your time and have a good rest of your day. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.